Hi there, this is Lucy from Patent Bar Unlocked, and this video is part of our series going through modernized questions from the USPTO Patent Bar that were given in 2002 but have been updated to be in line with modern law. Today we're going to be talking about means plus function claims. So this is question 1 actually from the April 2002 morning exam. It says, which of the following is the best way to recite a claim limitation so that it will be interpreted by the examiner in accordance with 35 U.S.C. 112F? So this question covers an important concept, which is 35 U.S.C. 112F. This statute underpins a rule about claim writing. So essentially, when you're writing a claim, you can choose to describe the claimed invention in terms of what it does rather than what it is or how it's built. However, if you do this, the claim will be narrowly interpreted to cover only what is described in the specification and its equivalents. Claims that do this are said to invoke 112F, and practitioners often try to avoid them so the claims will not be too narrowly interpreted. For example, the claim, a mechanism for locking a door, would invoke 112F because it's described in terms of functional language what the invention does. In contrast, a turning deadbolt consisting of a rotating handle and a pin for locking a door would likely not involve 112F. Claims that invoke 112F often use words like means or step, as in a means for cleaning silicon wafers or a step for joining two beams. They do not necessarily have to use those words, though. Courts have held that nonce terms like apparatus, device, or mechanism can all invoke 112F. The key question is whether the claim recites enough structural language to adequately describe the claim without relying on the functional language. Here's some more examples. Pause the video and decide which ones invoke 112F. Let's start with number 1. A mechanism for drawing cells into a tube so they can be passed in a single cell stream by a laser for counting purposes. Right away, you will probably notice that this claim uses one of those nonce terms, a mechanism. Right after that, it uses some functional language. It tells us what it's for drawing cells into a tube. And then if you read the rest of it, it doesn't tell us anything else about how it is built or structured or put together. So this claim would likely invoke 112F because it describes a flow cytometer in terms of what it does rather than what it is or how it's built. Let's look at number 2, a device for toasting bread comprising an outer housing, an inner wire bread holder configured to fit a slice of bread, and a plurality of wire heating elements. This also has one of those nonce terms, a device for, and then it tells us what it's for, functional language for toasting bread. However, the rest of the claim is modified by a series of structural elements that tell us how the device is put together. And those mean that this claim likely does not invoke 112F because it recites sufficient structural language to tell us how this device is put together. Let's look at number 3. Number 3 is a little different from the first two. It does not use one of those nonce terms, which gives a presumption that it does not invoke 112F. Let's take a look at it to be sure. So number 3 does include some functional language. It tells us that this solid-state memory module is for external data storage. However, it also recites some structural language here, and a person of ordinary skill in the art who is reading this claim would immediately understand what we're talking about. It's specific enough to likely not invoke 112F. Let's talk about number 4. Number 4 does include a nonce term, an apparatus, and then it tells us what it's for. It's for cutting grass. But the rest of the claim does not introduce sufficient structural language to avoid invoking 112F. It continues to tell us what this apparatus does, rather than telling us more about what it is. So overall, in these examples, example 1 and example 4 would invoke 112F. Let's go back to the question from the exam. Looking through the answers, which do you think will invoke 112F? I'll give the answer in a minute, but first let's imagine that you are on the exam and everything we've just talked about has flown right out of your mind. Luckily, the patent bar is open book. Let's go through how you could find the answer if you needed to. 35 U.S.C. 112 describes many important rules for patentability. Patentability is discussed in detail in Chapter 2100 of the MPEP. If we go to Chapter 2100, then we can search this table of contents for 112F. Let's do that now. Note that on the actual patent bar, you will not have anything that tells you how many times something appears. So in your studying, don't get used to using that. You also will not have handy markings along the side that tell you where they are. It's very old school. However, it can be pretty useful for going through a long table of contents. And here we see that section 2181 is going to help us understand 112F. Let's go there now. In the actual patent bar, you'd be able to click on this and it would take you directly to the section. My PDF viewer does not do that. All right, 2181. Now, kind of skimming through this, I see a section here that immediately says, determining whether a claim limitation invokes 35 U.S.C. 112F. That means it's probably what I want. If you scroll down a little, here is a step-by-step process for determining it, and you'll notice that this section here discusses exactly what we've just been talking about. Check if it uses means or step, or a non-structural term, whether it's modified by functional language, and whether there's additional sufficient structure, material, or acts for performing the claimed function. If a claim uses these nonce terms and it has functional language and it does not modify by sufficient structure, it's going to invoke 112F. Let's go back to the question at hand. So, pause the video here if you need some time to determine the correct answer. The correct answer is C. Answers A, B, and D each use something for language, but they also recite structures in addition to the functions. So for A, we have no nonce term. We do have for printing indicia, but we also have the structure of a dot matrix printer. Similarly with B, even though it uses the word means, it also recites structural language to modify the means language. In C, we have the word means, and then we have functional language, but no accompanying structural language. In D, we have, again, functional language, but we have structural language to modify it. Therefore, C is the correct answer. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the next videos in this series, along with more patent bar tips, tricks, and practice questions. If you want to start with the basics, my free Introduction to U.S. Patent Law module and a 10-question quiz are available on patentbarunlocked.com. No payment required. We'll see you in the next one.